Hello. Thank you all for joining us today, and thank you for joining us for this half-day Bright Talk event, a webcast sponsored by CA Technologies. My name is David Warner. I'm with CA Technologies in Solutions Marketing, and we'll be talking today, as you can tell from the title, we'll be talking about Agile and Agile methodologies, but we'll also be talking about quite a bit more than Agile methodologies. We're going to talk about the expectations of customers today and how Agile can help you meet those customer expectations. And we'll also talk about how automation can be a powerful addition to Agile development and help you really deliver products at the speed of Agile. So with that, I'd like to introduce the speakers on our call today. And I'll start off. My name is David Warner. I'm in Solutions Marketing, as I said, with CA Technologies. I've worked on the CA Clarity PPM project and portfolio management product for the last 8 years at CA. And in my solutions marketing role, I focus on a number of different areas, including Agile methodologies and ideation, requirements planning, and other areas around project and portfolio management and service management. And I'll allow the other two speakers to introduce themselves. Eric, could you introduce yourself next?
Hi, everybody. Eric Feldman here from CA Technologies. I'm happy to be back with a broad global Bright Talk audience. I'm also a Solutions Marketing Manager here, the same team as David. And before that, I've spent many years working with customers and helping them define and automate their processes as a senior architect in the global practice group. So I come from a real customer-centric perspective on how we craft and deliver solutions to our customers.
Excellent. Alan, go ahead.
Okay, I'm Alan Mills, with Engagement Manager with Digital Celerity. I basically help customers to implement PMOs and PPM systems. Also, about 10 years ago, I was involved as a product manager for an e-commerce product development and really understood how Agile methods really helped in helping people to really work together to deliver products very quickly. So I look forward to talking to you about those experiences today.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. And before we dive into the content here, we wanted to touch on a couple things that we'd like you all to keep in mind. First, keep in mind this is a live session. So we're speaking live, and we would like you all to submit your questions to us so we could discuss. We'll have a Q&A session at the end. And it's a live session, so things happen. For instance, right now I'm not able to see the slides. That's one of the things that happens with a session like this. So my counterparts will have to help me move the slides along. But another thing we wanted to mention is that we have also submitted a couple of polling questions that we'd like your input on. So we have questions about where you are today with Agile and where you are today with automation, and we're very interested in hearing your input on that, and we'll also discuss those later on in the session during the Q&A. Also, please feel free, please rate our presentation. As we get to the end, we'd very much like to know what you thought of this and was it valuable. That's very helpful for us going forward, so please do that as well. So with that, why don't we get started and dive in? And Agile, and Alan or Eric, you wouldn't mind putting on the Agile World slide?
You are ready to go.
Excellent. So we're going to start by laying the kind of setting out what the groundwork is today in terms of what expectations are with customers. And you may not have quite realized it as this cultural shift has changed over the last few years, but we all really have much higher expectations now of product delivery, in particular around technology delivery, than we had just a few years ago. And when you think about things like things we take for granted today, like downloading apps on our smartphones and our mobile devices, and what an immediate process that is, and how there are apps for everything we would want, and they're all right there and we can get them immediately. And it wasn't too long ago when that process of getting a product like that was a very physical one, and it took a lot more time. It required physical packaging and physical shipping and delivery. Installation was often pretty involved. And releases of products like that were often months or years apart. And really our expectations for all those things was that was the norm, and we all had those expectations. Now, of course, those days are long gone, and when we expect technology products to be delivered, we expect them to come out frequently, and we expect them to be delivered to us immediately. And that's something that we all have personally changed our expectations, that has also shifted to our business expectations. So we have the same expectations as business employees that we do that we do in our personal lives, and our businesses then that we work for in turn have those same expectations as well. So really, when it comes to technology today, the expectation is that customers expect to get what they want, and they expect to get it when they want it, and they expect regular updates and improvements of those technology products. So they expect version 2.0 and 3.0 and 4.0, and they expect them to come out pretty rapidly. For the most part, as fast as you can produce products, your customers are going to want them in their hands. And another piece to this as well is remember that your business also has expectations of you. So whether you are shipping products internally, if you were, say, an IT organization and you're shipping to your internal customers, or if you are an R&D organization and you're shipping to your external customers, either way, your business expects your product delivery to accelerate your business. And if it doesn't meet those customer expectations, it's not doing that. So if you would, Eric, if you can move to the collaborate slide.
You ready to go?
Excellent. So the first piece of this component, and this is what Alan Mills is going to go through in some depth, is to talk about how Agile fits into this new world, these new expectations. And Agile development really fits perfectly for what these customer expectations are today. As customers are expecting more frequent delivery of product, that's how Agile is designed. So Agile is designed for more frequent, smaller releases rather than larger ones. It produces product at a quicker rate, and you can release at a quicker rate. That goes hand in hand with what customers are expecting. And there are great efficiencies that we find in Agile, everything from the quickness of being able to release, but also the collaborative environment of it drives huge efficiencies in quality. It keeps projects from getting stuck. So in the old days of long development cycles, a problem may not be realized until way down in the development cycle, and it takes a long time to work back and get that problem resolved, and the release is delayed as a result. And now with these small iterations, those problems are realized more quickly and dealt with along the way, and it keeps the quality improved as you're going along through the different releases. And that also makes for more stable releases. So not only are you releasing more frequently, but you're releasing more stable, higher quality releases. So Agile really is a great fit for these customer expectations, and Alan Mills is going to talk about this in some depth. The next piece I want to talk about is automation. And Eric, if you don't mind moving to the automation slide.
Go ahead.
And automation is what Eric is going to go through in some depth. And automation is really a powerful 1-2 punch for meeting customer expectations today. So when you look at combining Agile and automation together, automation can really help you to deliver your products at the speed of Agile. And when you think about it, when you're developing an Agile and you have the ability to release frequently and quickly, if you don't have the means to deliver those products that quickly or those releases that quickly, then to some extent, what's the point of doing Agile if you're not able to take advantage of that? And automation, of course, just eliminates so many roadblocks and bottlenecks that you have and process problems, and gets those products in the hands of your customers. So, it does everything from streamlining requests and streamlining procurement processes. It eliminates delivery bottlenecks. And really, it empowers your customers. You can empower your customers with self-service, which, again, becomes even more efficient to getting the releases to those customers. So, and when you look at how you are developing and releasing through Agile, and you're doing these frequent releases of version 1, version 2, version 3, that's, of course, no problem with automation. They're handed off in an automated way. So ultimately, automation can be a key component of meeting customer expectations when worked with Agile together. You get the quick development with Agile and the frequent releases, and you get the immediate delivery through automation. So together, it's a very powerful combination. So let's start by having Alan Mills from Digital Celerity take us through Agile development in depth.
Alan, one quick, before we jump into that, please. I'm sorry, Alan and David. For everybody that's, we have a open vote screen. I just turned on the voting process. We have 2 poll questions. We'd like to get a pulse of what the audience is thinking. Currently, the active vote that's open is on Agile development. When Alan is done, I will turn on the poll question regarding automation. Please, Alan, take over.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. As David alluded to, the new modern economy dictates that customers really develop products very fast in an unknown environment. The products are very innovative and it needs an environment where you can actually create products with many unknowns. But at the same time, you also need to develop high-quality products and services, and there is a need to develop them faster. So the challenge is, how do you do that within those constraints? There is also difficulty in creating specifications. You cannot create specifications in a way that you used to before. And it's difficult, and if not impossible, to know every single step that's going to be involved in creating the product. Also, the change rate is very high in this new environment. So let's look at traditional versus agile product management. In traditional product management, the processes were very predictable. The specifications were completed, and then the build was completed. Then you would identify, define, and schedule and order all the activities. And these types of processes are really good for repeatable types of activities where you do similar things over and over again. So if I'm building a house or I'm doing improvements to an assembly line, this is a very good place where I can utilize traditional project management. Now, in an environment where there are many unknowns, where things need to move quickly, we need to collaborate more, there is a need for an agile product management approach. So an agile product management approach really focuses on an inspect and adapt approach. It's really suitable for when it's impossible to really create an upfront, unchanged, and detailed specification. And at the beginning, it's impossible to know every single step as well. So you really need to have a process where you can adapt to unpredictable change. And the steps are driven by incremental iterations and feedback cycles. And this agile process is suitable for new, innovative, and untested products. So what is agility? As the dictionary says, it's consisting of quickness, lightness, and ease of movement. And in a process perspective, it enables people to respond to change and take advantage of the turbulent business environment. It also gives the ability to quickly prioritize resources and to enable them to work on the things that are most effective. And you can then move very fast and respond to the sudden market changes. That's through the customer interactions that's involved with the agile processes. And really the essence of the agile methodologies is it's evolutionary, incremental, and it's iterative. And the key part of this is that the idea behind the agile methods is it delivers strong business value with the right size, just enough, and just-in-time processes and documentation. So just a quick overview of this. There's now moving from a different mindset for product management, where in the old mindset was customers knew what they wanted, developers knew how to build what the customer wanted, and nothing changed along the way. Now, in the agile world, customers don't know what they really want until they see it. And at the same time, developers discover how to build it when they build it. So there has to be a way to tie those things together and facilitate the changes that happen along the way in those processes. Just want to give you a quick example from a personal experience of when I was a product manager for an e-commerce product. The product would enable people to take large inventories of products to auction, and it was a new and innovative market. This is about 10 years ago, and it was driven by market demand for companies to drive their products to the auction marketplace. We had to deliver high-quality products that enabled this to happen, but we had to do it in a very fast-paced environment. So my background before that was very traditional project management and utilizing project processes. This was my first chance to utilize the Agile approach, and really the biggest focus there was the collaboration between the experts in the market, in our team, and the developers who developed the product. We kind of came up with a vision for the product. The product owners, or the market experts, developed the stories behind the product, and the developers would develop a prototype for the experts to review. We delivered the value to our customers in a short period of time, and if things change in requirements, we could adapt and add those requirements to the process. Now, one thing that guides Agile methods is the Agile Manifesto. It was developed by experts in the Agile field about 10 years ago. And what this does, it's a guide for Agile practitioners to utilize when they're managing an Agile project. And the essence of this is that what the item on the left is valued higher than the one on the right. That doesn't to say that the one on the right here isn't valuable. It's just that the one on the left is more valuable. So an example would be the first one, individuals and interactions over processes and tools. The individuals and interactions are more important in an Agile project where people interact, they discuss, customers interact and give their opinion on what the product would be, developers interact and give their ideas about what the solution should be, and that overtakes the process and tools. And process and tools are important in this environment, but they're what they call lightweight. They're not as heavy as in maybe some of the traditional project management. Working software, providing valuable products in this case. This is related to software, but they could relate to products as well. Providing valuable products over comprehensive documentation. Customer collaboration over contract negotiation, enabling customers to interact with the team. And responding to change and taking advantage of the changing marketplace of following a plan. An example of a well-utilized Agile method is the Scrum method. And what this enables people to do is to have a product backlog that customer would create of all the different stories and items and features that would want to be created in the product. Those that get then translated into a sprint or an iteration. Each sprint would last about 30 days. And within that sprint, they would have daily stand-ups, updates on progress, and at the end of that sprint, there would be working increments of the software or the product. Also, to contrast traditional product development with Agile product development, in the traditional sense, rather than doing all the one thing at a time, in the Scrum, teams do a little of everything all of the time. So what does that mean if you are working in an environment where you're moving to Agile? Where would you need an Agile tool? And an Agile tool takes advantage of the passion that people would have behind the benefits of Agile and enables and supports them. It enables a distributed team to communicate and update each other on the progress of their Agile projects. And tools enable you to see the big picture of all of the projects, both traditional and the Agile projects, together in one location. So when you're in an organization, traditionally you're going to be moving from maybe traditional projects to moving some of those projects to Agile, and you may have a combination of both. I have an example of a customer that was in the food processing industry where they had several traditional process-related projects where they were improving the manufacturing process. But they also had Agile research and development projects where they would actually manage that in an Agile way. And the tool that they utilized enabled them to see all of the projects together in one place so they can compare the scope, the schedule, the risks, the cost, and the resource utilization across the different projects and enable executives to make decisions based on the big picture of the portfolio of projects. I wanted to let you know I'm finished with my part of the presentation now, and I wanted to pass this over to Eric to talk about automation.
All right.
Excellent.
Thank you, Alan.
Before you start in, Eric, I wanted to do a little housekeeping. We've had a couple of questions come in that people are seeing the polling questions and aren't able to see the slides. It's my understanding, I think you should be able to close that window that would allow you to then see the slides that we're all seeing. If not, perhaps someone from Bright Talk could come in and offer some other advice, but hopefully you're all able to see the slides that we're presenting now. Eric, go ahead, please.
All right, thank you, David and Alan. All right, the slide everyone should be seeing says delivery challenges on the lower right, okay? And hopefully you're seeing that slide. Also, we had the vote open that was, are you using Agile methodologies? I'm going to close that vote now and open up the poll for automation. And by the way, the polls are there. They're not necessarily exactly aligned to the presentation today, but it's really just to get a pulse of what you guys are thinking and thinking about, kind of to gauge, if you will, your maturity on different areas. That's all. Okay, so I've turned on that other poll. Let's get going. You know, today, in this economy, in this marketplace, it's really become much more complex to deliver a product or service. And a lot of that's driven from customer demands and expectations that are being set, and also more complex supply chains. If you think about the supply chain between an iPhone 5 that's coming out and how many different areas of the world that's used to design, manufacture, and test and deliver that particular device, as well as coordination with phone carriers globally, it becomes quite a complex process. Now, also, companies have the need to, reduce overhead, particularly in this economy. And how do you reduce overhead? Well, a lot of that is through automated delivery systems and processes, which also have a direct impact to profitability. And that's why we really have this need. We've seen this everywhere to improve processes and automate as much as possible. Now, that's a key part, automate as much as possible, because not everything can be automated. I'll give you a great case study in automation, and that's Amazon, Amazon.com. They are the automation kings, and they're really a giant supply chain company. And if you think about what they do, they have warehouses filled with goods, and they have robots that actually go out and pull those products from a shelf automatically to deliver the order. However, they don't have automated systems to do every step of the process. There's a human being that will check the order and put it in the box, and then they'll have another system automatically seal the box, slap on a label, and automatically that manifest is communicated to the common carrier, UPS, FedEx, whatever, right? So you can't automate every step. You still may need, and that's the key word, may need, a human being to make logical decisions at some point along the way. But that automation capability of Amazon is what helps them communicate right on their website, you will get this by a certain date, because they've refined their systems so much they're able to tell you when and how much. Now, moving on, that's from the delivery perspective. But on a business perspective, companies today really need to watch their bottom line, right? And it's not so much about growing revenues, but it involves reducing costs. And let's face it, if you want to be more profitable, you increase revenue or you reduce costs or you do both. But the reducing costs really needs to come across all functional groups. A couple of key words for you is accountability and value. They become very important throughout an enterprise. And this need to demonstrate value often falls upon an IT organization, because that accountability is responsible for different stakeholders. if it's a public company, it's shareholders. In any enterprise, the stakeholders are the individual users or the customers, okay? And going back to that complex supply chain, there are many different stakeholders in every product and service. So demonstrating value often falls upon an IT organization, and the reason is often, not absolute, but often they're responsible for the automating the systems or maintaining the automation that will have different touch points throughout the enterprise. Keyword here is really companies are trying to get a more efficient use out of existing resources. Now let's look at kind of some pain points from automation. It's not necessarily an easy thing to deliver things automated, but from a business perspective, there's increased need for customer demands, and those demands have to be met. We need a better system to manage those requests, and they could come from, products or services can come from different service providers. Often we see that centralized clearinghouse, if you will, in an enterprise manage the delivery of services from different external vendors. And now there are different delivery methods too, such as virtual services. Who would have thought, for example, 20 years ago that you could get a college education without stepping foot in the classroom? Yet that is now a new and accepted delivery mechanism for a quote-unquote product called education. And also, businesses now need to standardize offerings. Another key point, because when offerings are standardized, it helps improve efficiency, and reduce costs, and also help increase customer satisfaction. Now let's move on to the customer perspective, because customers present their own set of challenges. Many customers, they want something to help them do their job, or, I need this and I need it now. And a lot of this expectation, the customer expectations, let's call it cultural based. We have a culture that's now, instant gratification is kind of like the norm, and a lot of that is through the growth of mobile devices and social media. I need to post an update right now. I always thought it's interesting how people are lined up in New York City right now at the Apple store for the iPhone 5 that's going on sale Friday. They'll be there for 3 days, but I'm fairly certain it's going to be available for sale in another month. But that instant gratification means people have to get it now. So expectations have risen. Also, customers want to know up front what it's going to take to get that product or service. And this is not so much in consumer markets. It's also made its way into the enterprise. So let's look at a typical scenario, kind of like we've seen about delivering a product or service. And this is with a lot of manual touch points. Often there's a central gatekeeper or traffic cop that controls the flow of tasks. This is often IT. And a request is made using forms or some other manual step, and it's sent to the provider of the service, and then it goes to another intermediary, and that intermediary will coordinate activities between different functional groups, such as operations and different IT silos, and ultimately that request is fulfilled and delivered to a consumer. Now, let's think of it from a different perspective where we can actually automate the delivery of service. And what we're looking at here is actually a real-world example of something we have done here at CA Technologies. Now, and we're just using the example of delivering a particular cloud service. So here you have a single point of contact, right? And that's represented here by Request Portal. And that's really a service catalog where that customer can go in, see all the available products and services with appropriate expectations and choose what they need. And those expectations are often communicated via a service level agreement. And from there, once that's selected, automated processes kick in. Perhaps an approval process is needed. Is this within realm of what that role entails, or within scope of what they're approved to spend? And then, those approval, there may be multiple layers of that approval. For example, anywhere from a financial manager to a person that needs to, measure or understand capacity. Do we have the capacity to deliver this service? And then the automated process will pull that particular service or that product from a pool of standardized configurations. We talked about that earlier and how that's required to help reduce costs and gain efficiency. And also, that will help better manage capacity, too, when we're able to pull from a standardized list of what's available. And while we automate the delivery of a service, we also want to automate the capturing of consumption. And that's important because those metrics help us with several vital functions. First of all, if we're charging for services, we need to know how much was consumed, per customer or per business unit. And if we're delivering any kind of service level agreement, then we need to be able to measure that delivery against the expectations or the obligations we set. And we also need a method of continuous improvement. Any company will always look to improve their processes, whether automated or not, and that capturing that consumption metrics helps us do that. Okay? And it gains us insight into really our overall capability and capacity as an organization, which ultimately, will help reduce costs. Now, automation is not a see-all, do-all. It's not necessarily going to enable a company to do everything. And there are a lot of pitfalls to automation. I'll give you one quick example. Everyone probably is aware of the Airbus A380, the largest passenger jet in the world. And about 5-6 years ago, there were years of delays in delivering the first Airbus. And Airbus suffered billions of dollars in cost overruns. And their systems to manufacture the plane are highly automated. But why did this happen? Because the factories in Germany and France used different versions of a sophisticated design software tool, and the versions were incompatible. So they had individual automation in silos in the different factories, but they were not coordinated, and they were not automated across the enterprise. And it cost them billions of dollars as a result. And finally, we'll wrap up here just looking at something we call the process automation value curve. And it's just one way to represent the value of automation. And what we're really trying to do is help us reduce capital and operating expenses. This will ultimately impact our revenue. Think about, how many products are delivered as a service, product in quote. You've got software as a service, infrastructure as a service. Even telephone systems now are delivered as a service, voice over IP, software, telephones. But as we move towards the ability to automate products and services, we can deliver more value. Ultimately, this, as I mentioned, falls in the IT department, but it helps us deliver more value and have a direct impact to the business. Okay. David, back to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Eric. And I can see the slides and the questions again, so I was able to fix that problem, which is great. And that's a good segue that as I'm going to spend a minute kind of wrapping up some of the things we've talked about, and then we're going to move on to the question and answer session. So if you haven't already and you have some questions, please submit them in just a minute or so. We're going to move to that session and answer the questions that have come in. So please take a minute to submit your questions. We would love to hear them and answer them. But first, let's take a minute to wrap up about some of the things that we've talked about. And we hope that you've been able to see how a combination of agile development and automation and automated delivery together can really be just a powerful 1-2 punch. And when you look at what those customer expectations are today, and when you think about customer expectations with regard to technology and how customers expect to get what they want, and they want regular updates of what they want. So they want, not only do they want what they want version 1, but they want what they want version 2 and version 3 and version 4. And agile development helps you to get that to them quickly. And the automated delivery piece allows you to deliver at the speed of agile. So as you're doing those frequent updates with agile, you're then able to empower your customers and streamline processes and give that immediate type of delivery that you can do with automation. And truly, automation is really delivering at the speed of agile. As quickly as you can develop an agile, you can deliver it with automation. So with that, I think we will move to the Q&A session, and we'll start with some questions that we have a number of questions that come in. I think the first question that we'll start with, Alan, I think this is a good one for you to answer, which is, how does Agile relate to PMBOK requirements?
Sure. Thank you very much for the question. Yeah, so the project management body of knowledge was developed really is a best practice for project management, and it fits very nicely with the Agile methods. And basically, there's two parts to the project management body of knowledge. There's the process side of it, and then there's the knowledge areas. And I'll just briefly describe each one to give you a sense of how the Agile methods ties together, and then some resources that you can use to dive even deeper into that. From the process perspective, every project has a start, the actual work that gets done, and an end. And in an Agile project, at the beginning of the project, the customer and the team will come up with a vision and define the initiated, what is the product kind of need to look like? What's the vision for the product? And then they would go about developing stories that go into the product backlog of features and items that they describe as stories. And then the highest prioritized list of those stories then become the sprints or iterations that then get worked on in a short period of time. And each of those iterations could then become sub-processes underneath the actual project itself. And then finally at the end, when everything gets tied together and we tied together the automation piece, there's a closing part of it. So from a process perspective, it fits very nicely. From a knowledge area perspective, it ties into each of the areas of the integration, the scope, management, time, risks, costs, and all, human resources and all the other areas within the knowledge areas. I'll give you some examples of those from a high level. From a scope perspective, what defines the scope of a Agile project is a backlog of features and stories that get prioritized into the iterations for the sprint, and the sprint then gets completed and worked on in that period of time. There are tools within Agile that enable time management, such as burn-down charts that describe the burn-down of the stories and things like that. And then there are ways to manage risks within the Agile processes. And then finally, human resources is very focused on the team building, because the essence of an Agile project is the team working well together to solve problems together. And it's more of an experimentation, adaptation, and testing within that. And one resource that you can utilize to go deeper into this subject is a book called A Software Project Manager's Bridge to Agility by Michelle Slager and Stacia Broderick. It goes very deep into each of those areas of the PMBOK, comparing what would happen in each of the knowledge areas, and then it gives you examples of how people have made the jump from a traditional type of project management to an Agile environment.
Excellent. Thank you, Alan. We have a few questions coming in, and I want to make sure we have a number of Agile questions and some automation. I want to make sure we get to an automation question next. Eric, I think, so this is a good question for you. What are the first steps, or how do you get started deploying an automated delivery system?
No, that's a great question, and I've seen that a lot with customers. It really, I want to say this, it really ties into understanding what you do, okay? Companies, I found, and a lot of companies I work with, they do things to what we call tribal knowledge. It just gets done kind of thing, So the first step to automation is documenting or defining a specific process, and it has to be to the degree of detail needed to perform the automation. For example, if you have a task that says get approval, well, who does the approval have to come from? What role? What person? What department? What's the time frame for delivering that approval? What happens if that person or role is not available? Does it get escalated? Does it just wait for them? You really have to be detailed. So documenting and defining your processes. I can't tell you how many customers I've worked with in the past. When I ask that question, okay, what's the next step in delivering the service? They say, well, Joe handles that. We've got to talk to Joe. Because somebody, and Joe's a metaphor for a person, that they handle everything, and they always have. Many companies' processes grow organically, and no one really knows how come it went that way. There wasn't a concerted effort to say, this is how we're going to do things. So the important thing is documenting what you do. Of course, people, tasks, systems. Step number 2, you have to ask yourself a very, very important question for each step of the process. Do you need to do it? Do you need to get an approval for every request? Or maybe just a request over a certain dollar amount, okay? And that's going to be driven by company needs. But that's even more important. Do you need to do it? Because if you don't, then there's no sense of even having that step in the process. And then, of course, automation becomes, in theory anyway, a lot simpler.
Excellent. So we have a couple of Agile questions, and also one, you can tell questions are coming in real time. We have a question to have you name the name of the book that you mentioned again, Alan. But here, let me toss you a bigger question, then you can bring the book back up.
Sure.
The larger question, or the other one to answer, is how do you define a project? Do you define it at the sprint level, or do you do it with multiple sprints? And so if you could address that, and then mention that book again.
Sure. Yeah, within the environment of an Agile method, there are things called releases. So you have one product, and then you'd lay out the releases for that product over a calendar that said, over the next 3 months, we want to deliver a release with these certain features in it. And then you go about having a release planning meeting, which then a release really could, in many environments, translates to a project. And then within that project, you would have maybe 4 or 5 iterations that would become sprints that would map to the features that you want to accomplish. So really the mapping that I've seen most people use is a release equals a project. And at the release planning meeting, the team would come up with a vision for the end result, the plan for the iterations, the list of features that would go into each of the iterations, and then they'd get into the iteration planning after that. So the book is called A Software Project Manager's Bridge to Agility, and it's by Michelle Sliger and Stacia Broderick.
Okay, excellent. And I think we have time for probably one more question because the whole session is 45 minutes. And to get to another automation question, Eric, we have a question about how do you empower your customers with self-service enablement, the self-service piece of customers being enabled themselves. How do you get started with that?
Yeah, another good question. You know, you can have all the systems in the world in place, and remember, automation systems are often managed by IT, although the processes are owned by different groups. For example, you know, if a company wants to add a new employee, all right, that onboarding process is often owned by human resources. But if there's a tool used to manage that process or automate that process, it's often managed or maintained by IT, the IT organization. Why? Because they have the technical expertise to do that. So it involves a lot of coordination. But the number one thing that a company can do to start this or to get the customers in to be able to enable that from a customer perspective is to deploy a service catalog. Because a catalog is the sole representation of the value. That is where these services or products are defined. And the definition, remember what we said very in the beginning when I talked about setting expectations, service levels, pricing costs, is where all those different parameters of the product or service come together. So a user can go in there and make a choice based upon what they need to do their job. Remember, back to cultural instant gratification, I need that iPhone 5 and it's going to cost this much and I can get it in a certain period of time. And then once that's selected, the automated process begins behind the scenes. And ultimately, we want to make the process part seamless to the ultimate requester or end user, but it goes back to the representation of that entire value chain. And how is it represented? Really within the service catalog. I'll give you one quick funny little example of a very bad service catalog. If anybody's ever seen the movie My Cousin Vinny, there's a scene where they go to breakfast, the Joe Pesci and Marissa Tomei character go to breakfast, and they go into a restaurant, and a restaurant menu is really a service catalog, and they sit down, and the cook hands them a piece of paper that says menu, and there are 3 choices. Breakfast, lunch, or dinner. And that's all it says. And so they, of course, say, well, we'll have breakfast. But there's no description, no price, no nothing of what that was. So that's probably a poor representation of value. Okay, so think about key points. How do we automate processes, and how do we represent the entire value chain of delivering that product or service inside a service catalog?
Okay, excellent. And we are just about out of time, but very quickly to talk through, we can come very quickly and let you know the whole results we had. The first question we had about are you using Agile methodologies for product development today? It's pretty well split. 60% of you are using Agile already, 40% of you are not. I think that's very interesting for us, and it's good to see that those of you who are not using it today are considering it since you're taking part in this webcast today. So that's a very interesting one. And then for the other question we had around automation, where we asked, to what extent are you using automated delivery systems? It looks like it's kind of spread across the board of the different levels that you're already using automation. So again, I think it sounds like there that this is something you're interested in and interested in pursuing and further. And hopefully today we've been able to give you some new food for thought there in considering using that along with Agile. So with that, I think we'll wrap up here. And on this last slide here, we have some ways for you that you can get more information about what we've discussed today. So if you would like more success stories and other webcasts and other just great information about customers of ours at CA and other companies that are having success with Agile, please go to ca.com/getagile. It's our landing page for all things Agile. Very great source of information for you. Likewise, please go to digitalcelerity.com. There's a lot of great assets there. That's where Alan Mills and his counterparts are, and you can learn about their services that they have available. A lot of great assets on Agile. Likewise, go to ca.com for other solutions information for everything you've heard today, ca.com/project portfolio management and service management. And also you'll see the number here for the PMI credit that you get for this course. We hope that this has been valuable for you, not only as a PMI credit, but also valuable for you in terms of how you're looking at Agile and Agile development and automation to accompany it. So on behalf of Alan and Eric, we want to thank you for the time you spent with us today with this session. We've enjoyed it. We hope that you have too. So thank you and have a great rest of your day.